The two most common questions about intermittent fasting are, when is the ideal time for the eating window? And how long should that eating window be? Now, there are two key points that have been gleaned from the scientific data about this feeding window and when to place it. And this is based on a really important experiment that Sachin and his colleagues have been doing. There's a website that they have, a zero-cost website called My Circadian Clock. You can go to this website free of cost. There are a number of important resources there. But what they've done is they've examined the feeding behavior of thousands of people. People will take a picture of the food they're about to eat, and it enters into their account on My Circadian Clock. And they do this over many days or weeks. What's great about this is it establishes what's essentially called a feedogram, a time in which people ate. And a number of important findings have emerged from these feedograms across large populations of people in different time zones with different schedules, etc. First of all, almost everybody underestimates their feeding window, meaning people who think that they are on an 8-hour feeding window or 6-hour feeding window, when their data are analyzed, it almost is always the case that they're actually on a feeding window that's 1 or even 2 hours longer than they think. You think, well, how could that possibly be? If people are taking their first bite at noon and they're taking their last bite at 8 p.m., well, that must mean that they are on that feeding window of 8 hours. And it turns out that people cheat, but they don't cheat in any kind of obvious way. They might have, a glass of wine after dinner, or they'll have a cup of tea and a little bite of a cookie. And so when people are honest, and they are honest in most cases for this experiment, what you find is that most people's eating window is actually quite a bit longer. So in discussing this with Sachin and reviewing the literature, it's clear that if you'd like to be on a 10-hour feeding window, that you should probably select an 8-hour feeding window, because there's always a little bit of a taper on either side of that eating window. Very few people are extremely strict about these eating windows. It's just hard to do in the context of life events and social gatherings and family and so forth. The important thing here is to establish a feeding window that you can comfortably manage, meaning that on average, you can obey a 6-hour feeding window or an 8-hour feeding window or a 10-hour feeding window. And then to place that feeding window in a social and life context that you can manage on a regular basis.